Imagine standing in a crowded, glittering ballroom. Your name powerful, your reputation untouchable, yet in one heartbeat, everything changes. What would you do if across the room you suddenly locked eyes with the love you lost years ago, only to see three little children at her side who look exactly like you? Tonight, that's exactly what's about to happen to Theo Kensington, and nothing in his carefully controlled millionaire's life will ever be the same. Welcome back, dear friends. And if you're here for the first time, we share powerful, heartfelt stories that will keep you hooked until the last word. So before we begin, tap that subscribe button, give this story a like, and let us know in the comments. What would you do in Theo's place? Now, let's step inside the gala. A hush fell over the grand ballroom as Theo Kensington stood rooted to the polished marble floor, champagne flute trembling in his hand. In the midst of the glittering charity gala, under golden chandeliers and surrounded by laughter and clinking glasses, Theo's world suddenly stopped. Across the room, framed by the soft glow of candelabras, stood Simone Jameson, the woman he had once loved more than life itself, his ex-wife. The sight of her after all these years was shocking enough, but it was who stood beside her that made his heart freeze mid-beat. Clinging to Simone's elegant evening gown were three small children, triplets, each no older than 4 or 5. They were beautiful boys with familiar chestnut-brown hair and striking grey-blue eyes, the very mirror of Theo's own. It was as if he were gazing back in time at himself. In that charged moment, the millionaire businessman, usually so composed and confident, felt the blood drain from his face. The chatter and music around him dimmed to a murmur. How could this be? Triplets, who looked exactly like him. Theo's chest tightened painfully. A rush of emotions, disbelief, joy, confusion, guilt, all warred within him. He barely noticed when his date for the evening, a statuesque socialite named Vanessa on his arm, asked with concern, "Theo, darling, are you all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." In a sense, he had. Simone was a ghost from his past, one he had never truly laid to rest. And now she was here, in the flesh, more stunning than ever in a midnight blue gown, and with children that unmistakably bore his features. Theo's mind raced as 1,000 memories ignited like fireworks. Simone's radiant smile on their wedding day, the scent of her skin as they danced under the stars, the last tearful look in her eyes the day she walked out of his life. He had never imagined he'd see her again, certainly not like this. Simone had also locked eyes with Theo. Across the crowded gala, her serene expression faltered when recognition dawned. Her deep brown eyes widened, and for a split second, Theo saw vulnerability flash there, a mirror to his own shock. She reflexively placed protective hands on the shoulders of the two boys flanking her, drawing them closer. Theo noticed her lips part as if to inhale sharply. Was she as stunned as he? Time seemed to stand still between them, an invisible current charged with years of unspoken feelings and regrets passing in silence. Theo's throat worked, but no words came. His feet felt glued to the floor. It took every ounce of composure he had not to rush across the room that instant. Triplets. My God, are they mine? He thought, heart pounding. He did the mental math frantically. It had been almost 5 years since the divorce. Those boys looked about 4, maybe a little older. Their faces, their eyes, and even the shape of their little noses. It was like seeing a miniaturized trio of his own baby pictures. There was no doubt in his soul, even without a test or a word spoken, he was looking at his sons. Vanessa followed his gaze and frowned, not recognizing Simone. "Who is that woman, and why are you staring?" she asked, a note of irritation creeping in. She tossed her perfect blonde curls over one shoulder, trying to reclaim Theo's attention. But Theo barely heard her. His entire existence had narrowed to the woman and 3 children across the hall. He watched in a daze as one boy tugged on Simone's dress, and she bent down, whispering something to them. The little ones looked up at their mother, then curiously across the room toward Theo. Even from a distance, Theo saw their eyes, his eyes, studying him innocently. His heart gave a jolt. Did they somehow sense who he was? Before he could gather himself, Simone turned in a swift motion, as if deciding flight was the best option. She began to usher the children toward the exit, her posture stiff. Panic seized Theo. She was leaving. After all these years, she was about to disappear again, and this time with his children. Adrenaline surged, breaking the freeze that held him. "Simone, wait." The words escaped his lips hoarsely, surprising even himself. Glasses tinkled and heads turned at his outburst. But Simone did not stop. Without another thought, Theo thrust his champagne into Vanessa's hand and took off after Simone, weaving urgently through clusters of bewildered donors and socialites. "Theo, what are you doing?" Vanessa shrilled behind him, but he didn't stop. His entire focus was on catching up to Simone before she vanished into the night. At the grand entrance of the ballroom, Simone had scooped one twin into her arms while the other two clung to her, and she was making her way toward the coat check area. Theo reached her just as she paused to gather the children's jackets. "Simone," he breathed out, voice uneven. Up close, he could see the slight tremble in her composure. She turned slowly to face him. For an agonizing heartbeat, neither of them spoke. They simply stared, eyes glistening with a torrent of things they could not yet voice. The air between them crackled with all the things once left unsaid. Finally, Simone broke the silence, her tone cool but quivering at the edges. "Hello, Theo." It was the same melodious voice that used to whisper, "I love you," in his ear on lazy Sunday mornings. Hearing it again sent a shiver down his spine. Theo struggled to find words. His eyes darted to the children, who huddled close to their mother, peering up at the stranger who had rushed after them. Up close, the resemblance was undeniable. One boy's expression of curiosity, the tilt of another's brow. They looked so much like him that it was almost surreal. "Simone," he began, voice thick. "Are they—" He couldn't finish the question. His eyes brimmed with emotion as they met hers, silently pleading for truth. Simone's jaw tightened slightly. She drew a shaky breath, glancing down at her sons. For a moment, her proud, protective stance wavered, and Theo glimpsed deep pain and uncertainty in her eyes. When she spoke, her voice was measured, guarded. "These are my children, my sons." She emphasized the word "my," gently yet pointedly. Theo noticed she hadn't directly answered what he was asking, but in that careful phrasing he heard the answer anyway. A dizzying mix of relief and remorse crashed over him. They were his. His eyes dropped to the boys, and an involuntary smile, equal parts wonder and heartbreak, tugged at his lips. Triplets, sons, his sons. The reality of it made his hands tremble. What are their names?" he managed softly, trying to keep his voice from shaking. He wanted to reach out to them, to caress their little heads or scoop them into his arms, but he held himself back, sensing Simone's protectiveness. He had no right, not yet, to assume a fatherly familiarity. Simone swallowed, studying his face as if unsure how much to tell. Finally, she placed a gentle hand on the curly-haired boy at her left. "This is Isaiah," she said. The boy pressed into her side shyly at being introduced. Simone touched the shoulder of the one she'd picked up, who had, since, wriggled back down to stand on his own. "This is Micah." Micah offered a tentative little wave, his bright eyes, Theo's eyes, wide with interest. And then Simone nudged forward the third child, who had been clutching the back of her gown, half hidden behind her. The little boy stepped forward, blinking solemnly up at Theo. Simone's voice softened. "And this is Xavier." Xavier looked at Theo with a curious tilt of his head, as though studying a reflection in a mirror. Theo let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Isaiah, Micah, Xavier. He repeated their names silently, etching each one onto his heart. "My sons, they're beautiful," he whispered, emotion thick in his throat. He cleared it gently and knelt down, instinctively coming to eye level with the little ones. The boys watched him with interest and caution. Up close, he saw how Isaiah's nose crinkled, just like his did when thinking. How Micah's tiny ears had the same slight outward flare that his mother always teased Theo about. How Xavier's serious gaze mirrored photographs of Theo's own father as a child. It was overwhelming. A lump formed in Theo's throat as he softly said, "Hi, Isaiah, Micah, Xavier, I'm—" He glanced up uncertainly at Simone, not sure what role she wanted him to take. Friend, acquaintance. The boys didn't know him, and after all, he had lost the privilege of being called their father, at least for now. Simone's eyes glistened, and she gave the barest nod, as if granting him permission to speak. "I'm Theo," he continued gently to the children. His voice almost caught. Theo felt too formal. He wanted to say, "I'm your dad," but he didn't dare yet. "It's very nice to meet you." He offered a warm smile. Micah grinned back, seeming to like him immediately, while Isaiah hid a bit behind Simone's leg, and Xavier continued his quiet appraisal. Simone watched this exchange with her arms lightly around the boys. Theo slowly rose back to his feet, heart pounding. Now that the initial shock was settling, a heavy silence of unresolved history fell between him and Simone. The noisy Gala behind them felt worlds away. They stood in their own bubble of tension and confusion near the coat check. Theo knew 1,000 burning questions needed answering, but this was hardly the place. Strangers milled about, and Vanessa was sure to come storming over any minute. Before he could speak again, Simone straightened her shoulders, regaining some of the regal composure she was known for. "We should go," she said quietly, avoiding his eyes. "It's late. The boys need to be in bed." She was poised for a quick exit, clearly unwilling to linger in this charged moment any longer than necessary. Panic spiked in Theo's chest. He couldn't let her walk out of his life again, not without understanding what had happened, not without assuring himself he'd see his children again. He blurted, a bit too loudly, "Please, Simone, don't go, not yet." The raw plea in his voice made Simone's resolve waver for an instant. She hesitated, biting her lower lip. "Please," Theo said again, more softly. He ran a hand through his dark hair, a nervous tic Simone would remember from years past. His grey-blue eyes shimmered under the lobby lights. "Just give me a few minutes. We need to talk. I know this is not the time or place, but I can't let you leave like this." He glanced at the boys, lowering his voice. "At least let me help you get them home safely. We can talk afterward, or tomorrow, maybe. Anything. He trailed off, emotion choking him. All the words he'd held back for years threatened to pour out, apologies, regrets, longing, but he knew unloading that now would only overwhelm her. Simone stood silent, conflicted. Up close, Theo could see she was as breathtaking as ever, her ebony skin glowing softly, her dark hair styled in an elegant chignon. But there was a tiredness under her eyes that wasn't there in their youth, a subtle strength in the set of her jaw that spoke of hardships endured alone. Seeing those signs of struggle cut him to the quick. She raised 3 children by herself. "My children." A fresh wave of guilt and sorrow crashed over him. This was all wrong. He should have been there. At that moment, a shrill voice cut through the hush between them. "Theo, what is going on?" Vanessa had finally caught up, her stiletto heels clicking sharply on the marble. She approached with an expression of annoyance and confusion, eyeing Simone and the children with thinly veiled disdain. "Who are these people?" Vanessa demanded, practically inserting herself between Theo and Simone. Simone immediately bristled, drawing her sons closer. She lifted her chin and spoke in a polite but icy tone. "It's okay. We were just leaving." To her boys, she murmured, "Come on, sweethearts." Theo frowned at Vanessa's interruption. "Vanessa, this is Simone." He struggled to encapsulate that Simone was not just some woman, she was his ex-wife. But before he could explain, Vanessa's eyes widened in realization. "This is Simone? The ex-wife?" Vanessa blurted, the word ex-wife dripping with a mix of surprise and something unpleasant. Her gaze flitted disbelievingly over Simone's figure, then down to the children clinging to her skirt. Realization and scandal sparked in Vanessa's eyes. "And are those—" Theo shot her a warning look, heart thudding. He had never discussed Simone much with Vanessa beyond a curt, "It didn't work out." Now Vanessa's sharp mind was putting pieces together. But his pressing concern was not Vanessa's reaction. It was Simone's comfort and the kids. He gently touched Vanessa's arm to silence her. "Not now," he said firmly. Vanessa huffed, clearly offended at being shushed. "I think I have a right to know what's happening here, Theo," she snapped, emphasizing his name as if to stake her claim. She forced a brittle smile toward Simone. "So, you're the famous Simone. And these adorable little children. Goodness, they do resemble." "That's enough, Vanessa," Theo interjected, his voice like steel. Simone's cheeks flared with color. Whether from anger or embarrassment, Theo wasn't sure, but he hated that this was turning into a scene. A few nearby guests were casting curious glances. The last thing he wanted was to subject Simone and the boys to gossip or humiliation. Protective instinct flared in him. Turning to Simone, Theo spoke urgently. "There's a private lounge just around the corner. Please, give me a chance to talk. 5 minutes, that's all. If you still want to leave after that, I won't stop you." His eyes pleaded with her. "I know you don't owe me anything, but I'm begging you, Simone. Don't disappear again without giving me a chance to understand. To make things right." His voice cracked on the last phrase. Simone looked at her sons, then back at Theo. Conflict raged in her expression. She clearly longed to flee and protect her boys from whatever storm was brewing, yet something in Theo's desperate sincerity made her pause. Finally, she gave a curt nod. 5 minutes, she conceded quietly. "But the boys, they can stay with me if you want," Vanessa interjected suddenly. "I'll watch them while you two talk." Her tone was sugary, sweet, but Simone and Theo both heard the undertone. Simone responded before Theo could, her voice edged with ice. "No, thank you. That won't be necessary." She had no intention of leaving her children with a stranger who looked at them as if they were inconveniences. Theo swiftly signaled one of the Gala staff hovering nearby. The young woman approached politely. Theo flashed a quick, charming smile, one that usually bent people to his will with ease. "Would you mind escorting these little gentlemen and their mother to the VIP lounge for a moment? And perhaps bring some juice or milk for the kids?" He slid a $100 tip into her hand discreetly. The staffer nodded obligingly and guided them. As Simone and the children followed the staffer down a hall, Theo gently caught Vanessa's arm and pulled her aside. He spoke in a low, urgent tone. "Vanessa, I'm sorry. I need you to give us a moment. I'll explain everything later." Vanessa's eyes flashed. "Explain what exactly? That you have not one, not two, but 3 children I never knew existed?" She hissed. Hurt and outrage colored her voice. "Were you ever going to mention that your ex had your kids?" Theo's face was drawn. "I didn't know," he admitted, voice hollow with regret. Those 3 words stunned Vanessa into silence. She stared at him, realization dawning that this revelation was as much a shock to Theo as it was to her. Theo pressed on. "I'll talk to you later, I promise. But right now, I have to handle this. Please, just go home, Vanessa." Vanessa's lips tightened. She was clearly furious at being dismissed, but Theo's demeanor left no room for negotiation. Finally, she scoffed, tossing her hair back. "Fine. Have it your way, Theo." She jabbed a manicured finger at his chest. "But don't expect me to stick around for this drama. Call me when you've sorted out your family issues," she spat, before turning on her heel and stalking off, her designer gown swishing angrily behind her. Theo exhaled, running a shaky hand down his face. Vanessa's parting words stung because they were true. He had a family issue of enormous proportions to sort out. But in that moment, as her figure disappeared beyond the marble columns, he felt nothing but relief. He needed to face this moment without distractions or cynicism. Squaring his shoulders, Theo made his way to the VIP lounge. His heart pounded with each step. This small room had been set up as a quiet retreat for high-profile donors to make calls or rest. Now it would host a confrontation 5 years in the making. Theo paused outside the door, steadied himself, and gently pushed it open. Inside the tastefully furnished lounge, Simone was sitting on a plush sofa, one arm around Isaiah, while Micah and Xavier sipped from juice boxes the attentive staffer had procured. The boys looked content enough, happily guzzling their juice and marveling at the fancy fruit platters that had been laid out for them. But Simone's posture was tense. She sat upright, her back not touching the cushions, as if poised to bolt at any second. When Theo entered, her eyes flickered to him and then away. The door closed softly behind him, granting privacy. For a long moment, an awkward silence hung in the air. Theo's gaze swept over Simone and the children, taking in every detail as if to convince himself this wasn't a dream. The boys chattered quietly to each other, oblivious to the heavy atmosphere between the adults. Finally, Theo spoke, his voice gentle. "Thank you for agreeing to talk, Simone." He remained standing a few feet away, not wanting to loom or crowd her. Simone nodded stiffly, but didn't meet his eyes. He took a slow breath. "First, I owe you an apology. For, well, everything." His words wavered with sincerity. "I don't even know where to begin. Seeing you tonight was the last thing I expected, but maybe it's exactly what I deserved. A long overdue reckoning." He ran a hand through his hair, eyes glistening. "I have so many questions, and I'm sure you have just as many for me." He forced a sad smile. "But I suppose the most important question is, how have you been? How are you? And our children?" At the word "our," Simone's gaze snapped up to meet his. Her eyes shone with unshed tears, but her voice remained measured. "We've been fine, Theo. We manage." She hesitated, then added, "We're doing well, actually. The boys are healthy and happy." There was quiet pride in her tone as she looked at her sons. "They're my whole world." Theo swallowed against the lump in his throat. They look amazing. So bright. I can see how well you've raised them." Emotion strained his voice. "Thank you, Simone. Thank you for taking care of them." He meant it fervently. Raising one child alone was hard enough. Raising triplets must have been monumental. And she had done it with such evident love. The proof was playing at her feet, giggling as Micah tried to stick a grape on Isaiah's nose. Simone gave a slight, wary shrug. "They're good kids," she said softly. Then a flash of bitterness crossed her features. "Not that I ever doubted they would be, with or without you." Theo flinched internally at that. He deserved the barb. Clearing his throat, he ventured the question whose answer he both yearned and dreaded to know. "Simone, why didn't you tell me? That you were pregnant? That I had children?" His voice broke on the last word. Pain and regret emanated from him. "If I had known, You what?" Simone cut in, her tone suddenly sharp as broken glass. Years of pent-up hurt trembled beneath her words. She kept her voice low, mindful of the children present, but the intensity was unmistakable. "What would you have done if you'd known, Theo? Come running to be a father?" She shook her head, a mirthless, tired smile on her lips. "Forgive me if I doubt that. You made your priorities clear when we parted." Theo's face crumpled. "That's not fair. He protested weakly, but deep down, he knew he had given her every reason to believe he wouldn't have stepped up. The past loomed between them like a dark chasm, full of mistakes and misunderstandings. He needed to bridge it somehow. He lowered himself into an armchair across from her, leaning forward, elbows on his knees, desperate to make her understand. In a hushed tone, he began, "Simone, please. Let's talk about what happened. That night." Simone stiffened, turning her face away. "There's no point digging up the past," she said tersely. "We both know what happened." Yet, her quavering voice betrayed just how deeply those memories still cut. From the carpet at her feet, Xavier suddenly piped up, holding out a juice-box straw wrapper. "Mama, look! A butterfly." He had twisted the wrapper into a vague butterfly shape and was offering it up for her approval. The tension momentarily diffused as Simone's expression softened. She took the tiny paper butterfly between her fingers and smiled gently at her son. "That's beautiful, sweetheart," she cooed, giving Xavier a tender kiss on the forehead. Theo watched this small interaction, his heart twisting. Simone's gentleness with the children illuminated the kind of mother she was, patient, loving, involved in their smallest delights. The scene was achingly sweet, and for a moment he allowed himself to picture what it would have been like to witness such moments every day, to be by her side as a CO parent sharing those smiles and bedtime stories and scraped knees. The ache of that loss was almost physical. When the boys returned to amusing themselves with the grapes and paper, Simone's gaze met Theo's again. Her guard was slightly down after that tender moment, and Theo seized it to speak quietly, earnestly. "Simone, I need you to know, not a day has gone by that I haven't thought about you. About us." He drew a shaky breath. "Losing you was the biggest mistake of my life. I was a fool, a damned proud, blind fool, and I paid for it every single day since." Simone's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. "We both paid for it," she said, a tremor in her voice. "But the ones who nearly paid the most are those 3 little boys. They grew up without their father." The raw truth of it hung in the air. Theo's composure broke then. He covered his face with one hand, as if ashamed. "I'm sorry," he whispered, voice cracking. "I am so sorry, Simone. You have every right to hate me. I hate myself for what I did, or failed to do. I let my pride, my prejudice, my cowardice destroy what we had." A tear escaped down his cheek, surprising him. He hurriedly wiped it, but Simone had already seen. Her expression softened a fraction at his visible remorse. Silence enveloped them, but was soon punctured by Micah tugging at Simone's sleeve. "Mama, who's that man?" he asked in a stage whisper that was clearly audible. The innocent question made both adults flush. Simone hesitated, caught off guard. She opened her mouth, but no sound came as she struggled to formulate an answer a 4-year-old could understand. Who was Theo to them indeed? In truth, he was their father, but he was also a stranger. How could she possibly explain in a few simple words? Theo, however, responded gently. He got up from the chair and moved to kneel on the carpet near where the boys sat. He kept a respectful distance, but tried to engage softly. "My name is Theo," he said, smiling kindly at Micah. I used to be a friend of your mom's, a long time ago." His voice faltered slightly, knowing friend hardly covered it. "We haven't seen each other in a long while, and I just realized tonight that your mom had 3 amazing little boys I never got to meet until now." Micah seemed satisfied with that answer for the moment and went back to attempting to build a grape tower on the coffee table. But Xavier, the quietest one, continued to gaze at Theo intently. "Are you sad?" Xavier asked suddenly. The directness of a child's perception caught Theo off guard. Simone interjected softly, "Xavier, honey, that's not polite." But Theo gently held up a hand, nodding. "It's okay." He met Xavier's eyes, those soulful young eyes so like his own in the mirror when he felt most vulnerable. "Yes, Xavier," he answered honestly. "I am a little sad." "Why?" Xavier pressed, blinking. Theo glanced up at Simone, who looked torn between intervening and letting them talk. He decided to be truthful, in a way a child might grasp. "Because I missed someone very important for a long time, and seeing them again makes my heart feel full, but also a bit achy." He smiled sadly. "Do you ever feel achy when you miss your mom if she's away?" Xavier nodded solemnly. Perhaps he remembered a night when Simone had to work late or something of the sort. Theo continued, voice gentle as a lullaby. "That's how I felt without your mom, and now I think I missed you 3 without even knowing it." His voice thickened with emotion again. He was essentially confessing to his children that he missed being their dad, though they hadn't known he existed. Isaiah, the shy one, had inched closer during this, curiosity overcoming his reticence. "Are you going to make Mama sad?" he asked quietly, thumb hovering near his mouth in uncertainty. Clearly the little boy sensed the heavy emotions between the grown-ups. The question cut to the heart of it. They had likely seen their mother sad enough times, and his first instinct was to protect her. The earnest query nearly broke Theo's heart. He shook his head fervently. "I promise, Isaiah, I will do everything I can not to make your mama sad." He looked up at Simone as he said this, holding her gaze. "In fact, I want nothing more than to make her happy, to make all of you happy, if I can." The sincerity in his tone made Simone's breath catch. For a moment, the shield around her heart slipped, and raw hurt shone through. She swallowed, then addressed the boys gently. Hey, why don't you guys go play by that little table for a minute? Look, there are some coloring books and crayons. Indeed, the lounge had a small kids' corner with entertainment. The triplets, easily distracted, bounded off together, Micah and Xavier racing while Isaiah toddled behind. This gave Simone and Theo a pocket of relative privacy to finally address the deep issues without little ears inches away. Simone turned to Theo, arms folded tightly as if to hold herself together. Her voice was low but intense. "All right, Theo. You want to talk about the past? Let's talk." Her eyes flashed with long-suppressed pain. "Let's talk about how pride and prejudice tore us apart." Theo nodded slowly, bracing himself. He had yearned for this conversation for so long, yet now that it was happening, he felt raw and exposed. "I know I failed you," he began softly. "I failed us, and there is no excuse for it, but I need you to know, I never stopped loving you, Simone. Not for one moment." She winced, shaking her head. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have let me walk away that night, Theo," she whispered, voice trembling. "You wouldn't have chosen them over me." A tear finally escaped down her cheek, and she brushed it away angrily. Theo felt as though a knife twisted in his gut. He moved from kneeling to sit on the sofa, a careful few inches from her, and dared to speak the truth they'd avoided. "I didn't choose them, Simone. I chose wrong. I was weak. I let my family's prejudice and my own stupid pride poison our marriage." His eyes burned with tears of regret. "You did nothing wrong. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I let you slip away." Simone's face crumpled as memories overwhelmed her. She remembered that fateful night with perfect clarity, the charity fundraiser at his parents' estate. Ironically, another gala. She had worn a simple ivory dress. His mother had sniffed that it wasn't couture. The subtle digs and cold stares from some of his high society friends. The way one of the board members' wives had referred to her as Theo's little diversity experiment when they thought Simone wasn't within earshot. And then the final straw. Theo's mother, cornering Simone near the powder room, hissing that Simone was ruining Theo's reputation, that she would never truly belong in their world. "A girl like you should know when to leave well enough alone," his mother had said with that saccharine malice. "If you really love Theo, you'd let him go. All you'll do is hold him back." Tears welled as Simone recalled stumbling out, humiliated and devastated, hoping Theo would comfort her. But when she found him and tried to tell him what happened, instead of outrage on her behalf, he'd been hesitant, defensive even, of his mother. He hadn't believed how cruelly they'd spoken to her, or perhaps he hadn't wanted to believe it. They argued heatedly in a side room, emotions high. Simone had begged him to stand up for her, to choose her and walk away from his family's influence, but Theo had faltered, torn between the woman he loved and the powerful family that had shaped him. His silence in that moment had broken her heart. Feeling utterly alone and disrespected, Simone had left the estate in tears that night, with no coat and a broken marriage. Neither of them had known she was already pregnant at the time. Now, sitting beside him years later, Simone could practically hear echoes of that fight. She looked at Theo through her tears. "Do you have any idea what it was like for me?" she said, voice shaking. "I gave up everything to be with you, and I would have given more. But all your money, all your status, none of it mattered because your family never accepted me." Her composure cracked as she admitted the deepest wound. "They looked down on me, on my skin color, my background, as if I was some gold digger or a phase you'd outgrow." Theo's eyes blazed with anguish. "They were wrong." He nearly growled, instantly regretful at how his voice rose. He quickly gentled himself. "Simone, they were so wrong. I should have defended you. I should have cut them off then and there. But I was a coward." His head bowed in shame. I thought I could somehow keep the peace, smooth it over later. I was afraid to lose my parents' approval, my inheritance, everything. And in trying to keep all that, I lost you. The most important person in my life." He wiped his damp eyes. "Believe me, I have lived with that guilt every day." Simone bit her lip hard, recalling her lonely journey after leaving him. "When I found out I was pregnant," she said softly, "I was terrified. Part of me wanted to call you immediately, but I just couldn't." Her voice cracked. "I kept remembering how silent you went when I begged you to stand by me. How you just let me go." She gave a small, sad shrug. "I convinced myself you wouldn't want the babies either, that your family certainly wouldn't. I was scared they might try to take them from me or hurt them with the same prejudice." Her voice hardened at the memory. "Your mother practically told me any children of ours would be a disgrace to your lineage." Theo inhaled sharply, horror on his face. I never knew she said that," he whispered, stomach turning. He had been willfully blind to a lot back then, but hearing this made his blood boil. "Simone, if I'd known you were expecting, I swear nothing would have stopped me from being there. I would have fought anyone who tried to hurt you or our babies, even my mother." His jaw clenched. "I'm not that spineless boy anymore. I've learned what truly matters, the hard way." Simone looked unconvinced, but she also looked exhausted. It was clear she had borne these burdens alone for so long. "Maybe," she sighed. "But back then, I felt I had no choice. I left town, went to stay with my Aunt Claudine in Chicago. I didn't want anything from you, not your money, and certainly not your pity. My pride was wounded beyond repair." She managed a weak, ironic smile. "Funny, isn't it? Pride ruined us both. Yours, mine, and their prejudice." Her eyes flicked bitterly as she referred to his family. He reached out impulsively, covering her hand with his. "It's not funny, it's tragic, and I wish to God I could go back and undo it." Simone stiffened at his touch for a moment, but then didn't pull away. A fragile silence settled. Both of them were breathing a little unsteadily, overwhelmed by finally confronting the festering wounds of their past. In the quiet, they heard the soft laughter of the children coloring in the corner. It was a balm to the tension. Simone glanced over to ensure they were all right. They were happily scribbling with crayons, oblivious to the heavy conversation. The sight of them, their children, was a poignant reminder of what mattered most now. When Simone turned back, Theo was gazing at the boys with a mix of awe and sorrow. In a halting voice he asked, "Did you ever think of telling me? After they were born, maybe?" He wasn't accusatory, just hurt, as if still struggling to fathom how he could have been kept in the dark about something so huge. Simone swallowed. "I did think about it," she admitted. "Dozens of times. I wrote letters that I never mailed. I even picked up the phone once or twice." Her eyes misted with the recollection. "But I always lost my nerve. Each time I thought of you, I'd see the man who didn't fight for me. I was scared you'd reject them, Theo, or that if you did accept them, your family would try to take over, maybe even fight me for custody, claiming I was unfit or something." Her voice shook with the fear she'd carried. "I couldn't bear the thought of losing them. They were all I had." Theo felt fresh tears slip free. How had things become so broken that she feared him or his family harming their own flesh and blood? He gently squeezed her hand. "I understand why you felt that way," he murmured. "My parents, they had a stranglehold on my life back then, but not anymore, Simone." He straightened, resolve sparking in his eyes. "After you left, I changed. It took me a while, but I realized I had nothing if I didn't have you. I threw myself into work partly to numb the pain, but also to prove I could stand on my own without my father's fortune." He managed a small, self-deprecating smile. "I made my first million within 2 years after our divorce. Did you know that?" "Probably not. You were busy with these little guys." He nodded toward the children, pride and regret mingling. "But I did it. And then I doubled it. I built a life that's mine, not something conditional on my parents' approval. I haven't taken a cent from them since." There was steel in his voice now. "If they ever try to interfere with our children or insult you again, I will cut them off completely. Hell, I'll do that regardless. Because family, real family, is worth more than fortune or social standing." Simone listened, searching his face for truth. He certainly looked like a man who had carved his own path. The confidence in his bearing, the tailored suit that he clearly bought with his own money, not Daddy's credit card. And the way he spoke of protecting the children. That was new. The old Theo had always been gentle and loving with her, but a decisive protector? That side of him had been missing when it mattered most. Perhaps loss had changed him, as pain changes everyone. She felt some of the ice around her heart begin to melt, just a little. The tone in which he said our children made her heart skip. Could she dare hope that he truly wanted to be a father to them now? That he was even worthy of that, after all this time? She looked over at Isaiah, Micah, and Xavier, their precious boys, and her chest tightened. "They've never had a father," she whispered. "I tried my best to fill that gap. My uncle was a male role model for them sometimes, but they've started asking questions, especially Isaiah. He's the most observant." She wiped her cheek. "I told them their daddy lives far away, that he loves them, but we just can't see him." Her voice cracked. It was a lie I didn't know how to navigate. I didn't want them thinking he didn't care. I didn't want them feeling unwanted. Theo closed his eyes, grief rippling through him. The thought of his sons wondering about him, maybe feeling unloved, was almost more than he could bear. "I do care," he said hoarsely. "I care more than my own life. Simone, I know I can't change the past. I can't erase the years of struggle you went through alone, or the milestones of theirs I missed. Their first words, first steps, I missed it all." His voice was thick with self-loathing at that reality. "But if you'll allow me, I would like nothing more than to be part of their lives now, to be their father, in every way that matters. After everything he's done, should Simone risk opening her heart to Theo again? Or would forgiving him only invite more pain? If you were in her place, holding the pieces of a once broken heart, would you let him try, or walk away forever? Share your opinion in the comments below." Simone's eyes widened slightly. He was essentially asking for a chance, not just at CO parenting, but perhaps implicitly at reconciliation. She glanced down at their still intertwined hands and gently pulled hers away, not out of anger, but caution. "Theo, that's a big request," she murmured. "You can't just drop into their life out of nowhere and claim the title of dad. They don't know you. Trust has to be built, slowly." He nodded earnestly. "I understand. I'm prepared to earn that trust, both theirs and yours. I'll do whatever it takes, no matter how long." His eyes searched hers, and in them, Simone saw the flicker of hope and determination. It stirred something long dormant in her, something she thought she'd buried the day she left him, the love she still felt for this man. She had tamped it down, covered it with anger and practical focus on motherhood, but seeing him now, hearing his heartfelt contrition and resolve, that love flickered like a fragile flame. It scared her to acknowledge it. She cleared her throat, eyes dropping to her lap. "They will have questions. How would we even explain who you are?" Theo thought for a moment. "Maybe not all at once. I could start by visiting, spending time with them as a friend of yours. Let them warm up to me. When the time is right, and if you feel comfortable, we can tell them I'm their father." He looked at her with cautious optimism. Unless you'd prefer I not tell them that at all." He had to consider the possibility she might want to keep that status close to him. Simone grimaced softly. "They deserve the truth. I won't lie to them about you now that you're here. But yes, maybe gently. They're still so young." She sighed. "This is a lot, Theo. I didn't plan for any of this. Coming to this gala tonight was a last-minute decision. My friend works for the charity and gave me tickets. I had no clue you'd be here." She gave a half smile. "Fate has a funny way of throwing curveballs, doesn't it?" He gave a small chuckle, the first hint of lightness between them. "Fate indeed," he agreed softly. Then he became serious once more. He reached into his inner jacket pocket and pulled out a business card, scribbling a number on the back. "This is my personal cell and my home address," he explained, handing it to her. "I know we need more time to talk, much more. And I want to meet with you again, on your terms. If you say no, I'll respect that, but I truly hope you won't shut me out." His voice quivered at the thought of being shut out again. "For tonight, I'd feel better if I could at least get you and the boys safely home. It's late." Simone looked at the card, and then at him. The sincerity in his eyes was undeniable. A part of her was still wary, still protecting herself and her children from potential hurt. But another part, the part that had never stopped loving him, whispered that maybe this was a second chance, not only for him but for her too. She had been lonely, in spite of her fulfilling life as a mother. She had built a stable career as a social worker to support her family, had friends. But in quiet moments, she often yearned for the partner she lost, for the father her kids never got to have. Perhaps destiny was handing them a chance to heal and become a family after all this time. "All right," she said quietly. "You can come with us tonight. See us home." She gave him a firm look. "But no promises beyond that, yet. We'll take this one step at a time for the boy's sake." Theo exhaled a breath he didn't realize he was holding, relief washing over him. "Of course. Thank you, Simone. Truly." He stood and offered his hand to help her up from the sofa. She eyed it briefly, then accepted. For a fleeting second as she rose, they stood close, hands clasped. Both felt the spark of that physical connection, a spark that had always been there. Simone flushed and gently withdrew her hand once steady. There was a charged moment where they simply looked at one another, memories swirling. Theo cleared his throat and called softly to the children. "Hey, guys. How about we all go for a ride? I'll drive you and your mom home." Micah bounced up, ever energetic. "Yay, car ride," he chimed, not needing any reason for excitement. Isaiah looked to Simone for confirmation, and she nodded with a reassuring smile. Xavier carefully put away his crayon, thoughtful as always, then came to take his mother's hand. As they prepared to leave, Theo shrugged off his suit jacket and gently draped it around Simone's shoulders without asking. She started to protest. "Theo, I'm fine." But he insisted, "It's chilly out. Humor me." It was a gallant gesture that made her heart flutter unexpectedly, reminiscent of gentler times when he'd always insist she wear his coat on cold nights. How easily those old habits resurfaced. They walked out together, an unusual little group, a contrite millionaire, a wary yet hopeful mother, and 3 rambunctious boys happily clutching the leftover fruit snacks from the lounge. As they exited the venue, Theo guided them to his sleek black car, a sporty yet sensible SUV befitting a family man, Simone noted with a tiny smile. He opened the passenger door for Simone and helped buckle the kids into the back with the extra booster seats he quickly requested from valet services. The hotel had spares for VIPs with children, fortunately. The boys found this all quite the adventure. New car, nighttime outing, and a friendly Mr. Theo driving them. During the drive, Micah peppered Theo with questions. "Do you have any toys at your house, Mr. Theo? And can we get ice cream?" Simone was about to scold the late-night ice cream idea, but Theo chuckled and actually detoured to a 24-hour drive-through, getting small vanilla cones for everyone. "Don't tell Mom," he whispered conspiratorially to the boys, making them giggle. Simone shook her head in exasperation but couldn't hide her smile as she accepted her own cone. It was such a normal, casual happiness, something she never imagined sharing with him again. For a few minutes, they were like any family driving home late, the kids licking messy ice cream, Mom and Dad exchanging amused glances over the chaos. Theo's heart swelled every time one of the boys called out, "Mr. Theo, look," and showed him a goofy face covered in ice cream. He responded with playful enthusiasm, even as tears pricked his eyes at how beautiful this simple moment was. In the rearview mirror, he caught Simone watching him, her expression unreadable, but her eyes were softer than before. When they reached Simone's cozy suburban home, a modest but warm-looking house on a tree-lined street, Theo parked and helped carry the now sleepy boys inside. One by one, Simone guided them to their bedroom, and Theo hovered in the doorway, feeling like an intruder in this intimate domestic space yet longing to be part of it. The room was small but filled with love, hand-drawn pictures on the walls, 3 toddler beds each with a different colored blanket, blue, green, red, stuffed animals guarding the pillows. He gently set Micah down in his bed as Simone tucked in Isaiah and Xavier. The boys were too drowsy to protest or ask more questions. The excitement of the night had finally caught up with them. As Simone kissed each forehead and whispered goodnight, Theo stood back, giving them privacy. But when she moved to the doorway, she noticed Theo still watching the sleeping children, his eyes shining with wonder. Tentatively, she asked, "Would you like to say goodnight to them?" Theo glanced at her, surprised and grateful. "May I?" She nodded. With careful, quiet steps, he approached each bed, He gently brushed a curl off Isaiah's brow. The boy murmured and turned over, already in dreamland. "Good night, Isaiah," he whispered. He then tucked Micah's stuffed dinosaur closer to the boy's chest and whispered, "Good night, Micah. Sleep well, buddy." Finally, he crouched by Xavier's bed. Xavier was still barely awake, gazing up at Theo through heavy lids. Theo gave him a tender smile and softly said, "Good night, Xavier. It was very nice meeting you." To Theo's surprise, Xavier sleepily reached out a tiny hand and touched Theo's cheek, patting it in a comforting gesture the way a child might. "Night, night," the boy mumbled before his eyes closed. Theo's breath caught. That simple, trusting touch from his son nearly undid him. Blinking back tears, he rose and quietly left the room with Simone, turning off the light and leaving the door open a crack. In the hallway, they paused, facing each other. Simone saw the tears Theo was fighting to control and felt her own resolve weakening further. There was such love in the way he looked at their children. It wasn't fake or fleeting. It was real, raw and deep. She spoke first, voice soft. "Thank you for the ride, and for being gentle with them." He shook his head. "I should be thanking you, Simone. Tonight it's been the best night I've had in years." He gave a small, teary laugh. "And also the hardest. But I'm grateful. More than I can say." He took a step closer, then stopped himself, unsure of the boundaries now. They were alone in the quiet of her hallway, just a few feet apart. The children were safe and asleep. The house felt peaceful, wrapped in the blanket of night. Simone realized they had automatically fallen into hushed tones as if they were a couple trying not to wake the kids. The familiarity of it tugged at her heart. Her eyes roamed over Theo. He looked different in the gentle lighting of her home, more vulnerable. He had loosened his tie, the top button undone. He seemed less like the polished millionaire from the Gala and more like the young husband she used to curl up with on the couch, the one who read poetry to her on Sunday mornings. How easily the layers had peeled back tonight to reveal the man she fell in love with. Could she trust that this was real and lasting, or would he revert once the shock wore off? Theo seemed to read some of her uncertainty. He spoke, voice barely above a whisper. "I know I have to earn your trust again, and I will. Whatever it takes, if I have to move mountains or crawl on my knees, I'll do it." He paused, then added, "I'll be in town indefinitely. Honestly, I don't think I could leave now even if I wanted to." He smiled wryly. "You and the boys have me thoroughly hooked." Simone couldn't help but smile at that, a light blush warming her cheeks. The intensity of the day, the emotional roller coaster, and the tender scene of him saying goodnight to their sons left her feeling a bit unmoored. On impulse, she stepped forward and gently wrapped her arms around Theo in a hug. It was meant as a simple gesture of gratitude and maybe forgiveness, but the moment she felt his familiar warmth envelop her, Simone's composure broke. All the loneliness, stress, and longing of the past 5 years came pouring out. She buried her face against his shoulder and began to sob quietly. Theo was startled only for a second before he folded her into his embrace, holding her securely as she cried. He pressed his cheek to her hair, eyes closed in profound relief at being able to comfort her at last. "Shh, I'm here," he whispered soothingly, rubbing her back. "I'm here now, Simone. I'm so sorry I wasn't before, but I'm here now." His own tears flowed freely, dampening her hair as they clung to each other. It felt indescribably good to hold her again. Theo realized just how starved he had been for this connection. Simone's scent, her softness against him, the way she fit in his arms. It was all achingly familiar and yet new, because now he understood just how precious it was. He silently vowed that never again would he let her go, not if she would have him. He would spend every day earning her back, proving that family is worth more than fortune, proving that his pride was long gone. Simone's sobs subsided slowly, turning to sniffles. She realized she was clutching his dress shirt, likely crumpling it, but he didn't seem to care. Embarrassed, she began to pull back. "I'm sorry," she murmured, wiping at her eyes. "I didn't mean to." Theo gently cupped her face. using his thumbs to tenderly brush away her tears. "Don't apologize," he said softly. "You have nothing to be sorry for. I'm the one who's sorry." His hands lingered, cradling her cheeks, and Simone didn't pull away. Her eyes, still wet, searched his. In that intimate silence, something shifted, an old, undeniable gravity drawing them together. Theo's gaze drifted to her lips and back to her eyes, silently asking permission for what his heart desperately wanted. Simone's breath hitched. The logical part of her mind screamed caution. It was too soon, too fast, but her heart overruled it. She gave a barely perceptible nod, leaning just a fraction closer. That was all the invitation he needed. He closed the distance, and their lips met in a gentle, trembling kiss. It was as if time rewound and nothing had ever separated them. The chemistry, the warmth, the love surged forth in that contact. Simone sighed against his mouth, a sound of both relief and yearning. Theo's hands slid from her face to wrap around her waist, drawing her nearer. The kiss deepened naturally, years of pent-up emotion pouring through. It was slow and tender, yet underlined with a desperate hunger, both of them making up for all the lost kisses, the lonely nights apart. Simone's hands found their way to the back of Theo's neck, fingers threading in his hair like she used to do when they lay in bed on lazy mornings. He let out a soft groan at her touch, his heart hammering. Kissing her again felt like coming home after a long exile in the cold. He savored the sweetness of her lips, the way she still tasted faintly of vanilla from the ice cream. Every brush and caress was a reassurance. We're here. We're alive. We found each other again. They finally parted slowly, foreheads resting together as they caught their breath. Both of them were slightly dizzy, hearts racing. Simone opened her eyes, and the gentle smile on Theo's face made her chest swell. She gave a shaky laugh. We should probably take things slowly, remember?" she teased softly, echoing her earlier words. Theo chuckled, brushing a strand of her hair back. "I know. But I've been wanting to do that since the moment I saw you tonight," he admitted, eyes twinkling. Then he grew more serious, thumbs stroking her cheek lightly. "I meant what I said, though. I'll take things at whatever pace you need. If that was our only kiss for a while, I'll live on it like a camel in the desert." Simone laughed quietly, the sound like music to his ears. The heaviness between them had lifted considerably. There were still issues to navigate, but for the first time in years, both felt a cautious sense of hope. "I won't make you wait too long," she whispered, biting her lip bashfully. I never stopped loving you either, Theo. I tried to bury it, but seeing you with the boys tonight, it reminded me why I fell in love with you in the first place." Her eyes shone with affection and lingering sorrow. "You hurt me terribly, but I see you trying to make amends. And for our son's sake, and maybe for ours, I'm willing to try too." Theo felt as if his heart might burst. He pulled her into another embrace, this one lighter, her head tucked under his chin. "Thank you, Simone. You won't regret it," he murmured fervently. "I swear I will spend the rest of my life making you and our boys happy." She relaxed in his arms, allowing herself this moment of joy. For once, she felt like she didn't have to carry the world alone on her shoulders. There was someone who wanted to share the load, someone who finally understood that love and family are priceless treasures, worth any sacrifice. They stood there in each other's arms, in the quiet safety of the home Simone had built, and both silently made the same vow. Never again would pride or prejudice tear this family apart. The long-buried truth was out, secrets and shocks unveiled, and now healing could truly begin. Over the weeks that followed, Theo proved true to his word. He became a constant, supportive presence. At first, he visited every afternoon, at polite distances, simply playing with the boys in the park or reading them stories as a friend. Simone watched as her sons grew increasingly attached to him, laughing and yelling, "Mr. Theo, push me higher," on the swing set, or curling up next to him at story time. In quiet moments, her heart melted seeing Theo cradle a napping Micah on his chest or patiently help Isaiah build an elaborate block tower. One evening, about a month later, the triplets came to Simone after Theo left and asked innocently, "Mama, is Mr. Theo our daddy?" They had clearly put two and two together. The resemblance, the way he and Mama were slowly becoming close. They'd caught a kiss or two when they were supposed to be asleep, giggling and pretending to snooze. Simone knelt down, gathered her sweet boys and told them the truth gently. Yes, Theo is their father, and he loved them very much. There were a few tears, mostly Isaiah's, out of sheer happiness to finally have a daddy, and many hugs. The next day, when Theo arrived, 3 little voices squealed "Daddy" as they tackled him at the door. Theo wept openly, hugging them tightly. It was the first time he heard that word directed at him, and it was more musical than any symphony. From then on, Mr. Theo proudly became Dad. He and Simone navigated Kyo parenting with grace, discussing preschool plans, doctor's appointments, bedtime routines. Theo was eager to share responsibilities. He showed up at 6 a.m. some mornings with breakfast so Simone could sleep in just a bit. He learned to braid hair for Crazy Hair Day at daycare. The boys had wanted little braids and he obliged, resulting in a hilariously messy but heartwarming style. And he even took on the challenge of potty training accidents with humor instead of horror. All the while, his and Simone's relationship blossomed anew, slowly but surely. They went from caring co-parents to tentative friends to late-night confidants, talking for hours after the kids were asleep. The romantic tension simmered always, but Theo was patient, letting Simone set the pace. Eventually, one golden afternoon at the park, as they watched the boys chase butterflies, Simone slipped her hand into Theo's and leaned on his shoulder. It was a small, public show of unity, but it spoke volumes. Theo pressed a kiss to her hair, both of them smiling softly as their sons ran in circles around them. They were becoming a family. Not everyone was thrilled at this development. Word got back to Theo's parents that he was involved with Simone again and that he had children with her. Just as predicted, his mother attempted to meddle, arriving at Simone's door one day unannounced. She carried herself with the same haughty air, but this time Theo stood firm, shielding his family. In a calm but forceful confrontation on the porch, he told his mother that if she could not treat Simone and the children with the respect and love they deserved, she was not welcome in their lives. His father tried to bribe him with talk of a trust fund for the kids, on the condition they be sent to elite boarding schools in the future, away from Simone's influence. Theo angrily declined, stating that no amount of money was worth his family's happiness. In that moment, Simone, who had been anxiously listening from inside, felt her last reservations melt away. Theo had truly changed. He was finally the partner who would fight for her without hesitation. Theo's parents left in a huff, and though it hurt him to sever ties with his family, he felt an unexpected freedom and rightness about it. Pride and prejudice would no longer rule his life. Love would. He turned to find Simone behind him, tears in her eyes at what she'd overheard. She stepped forward and embraced him fiercely. "Thank you," she whispered, knowing what that cost him. Theo just kissed her forehead and smiled. "They'll come around someday, maybe. If not, we'll manage. We have everything we need right here." That night, with the boys at a sleepover at their great-aunt's house, Simone and Theo finally had an evening alone. They cooked dinner together, something they used to love doing. Amid chopping vegetables and reminiscing about silly kitchen disasters from their newlywed days, like the time Simone tried to bake a cake from scratch and ended up with something resembling a pancake, they shared laughter and meaningful looks. After dinner, as soft jazz played on the radio, they danced in the living room, swaying gently. It was reminiscent of their first dance at their wedding, slow, intimate. In the warm lamplight, Theo cupped Simone's face and looked deep into her eyes. "Marry me again," he breathed, emotion thick in his voice. Simone's eyes widened, and he continued quickly, "Not right away, not if you're not ready, but someday. I want nothing more than to spend the rest of my life making up for the time we lost. I want to be your husband again, properly, and be the father our boys deserve." He swallowed, adding with a crooked smile, "Third time's the charm, maybe? We married once, divorced once. Let's marry again and make it forever this time." Simone laughed through happy tears at his earnest, clumsy proposal. "You always were dramatic," she teased. Then she grew serious. "Yes, someday. I want that too. But let's do it when the boys are old enough to carry the rings, Deal," he whispered, grinning. He sealed the promise with a kiss, a deeper, more passionate one, that soon had them rediscovering the physical love that had never truly died between them. In the soft glow of their second chance, they made love that night with a tenderness and fire born from years of longing and newfound trust. It was spicy and sweet all at once, a slow burn of intimacy that left them both in tears and laughter by the end, entwined in each other's arms until dawn. As they lay in each other's arms afterward, Simone rested her head on Theo's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "I missed this," she confessed softly. "I missed you." Theo kissed the top of her head. "I missed you too, more than words can say. Thank you for giving me back my heart." He tilted her chin up so she met his gaze. "You know, our story, it's one heck of a story, full of heartbreak and miracles. We should write a book or something," he joked lightly. Simone smiled, tracing a finger along his jaw. "Maybe not a book, but I hope we can teach our sons through it, so they never make the mistakes we did." Theo nodded thoughtfully. This was a chance to impart important life lessons to the next generation. Absolutely. First lesson, don't let pride and prejudice destroy love. It's a poison. We nearly lost everything because of it. And second, Simone added, her voice soft but firm, family is worth more than fortune. Money and status mean nothing if you have no one to share them with, no one who truly loves you. Theo kissed her gently. Well said. They lay quietly for a while, imagining the future conversations with their boys as they grew older, telling them about how Dad was stubborn and Mom was proud, and how they almost threw away their happiness, but how love brought them back together. It would be a lesson in humility, forgiveness, and the power of truth. In the following months and years, the Kensington Jameson household flourished. The triplets delighted in having Daddy around all the time. They moved into a larger house that Theo purchased on the same street, so as not to uproot the kids, and this one had a big backyard where the boys could play soccer with him in the evenings. Simone and Theo truly became partners, from late-night diaper changes for their surprise fourth child a couple years later, a baby girl who arrived to complete their joy, to cheering at Little League games, to navigating kindergarten PTA meetings. They complemented each other better than ever, communicating, openly, never shying from difficult topics. They'd learned the hard way that silence and avoidance can birth misunderstandings. Now, honesty reigned in their home. One sunny afternoon, about 3 years after that fateful gala, they held a small wedding ceremony in the local park under the oak tree where the boys loved to play. Isaiah, Micah, and Xavier, dressed in tiny suits, carried the rings on velvet pillows and took the role very seriously. Little baby Dahlia, named after Simone's late grandmother, was the flower girl, wiggling in Simone's cousin's arms and gurgling happily as her parents exchanged vows once more. Theo's father did attend quietly at the back. Time had softened his stance after seeing his son's unwavering commitment. His mother sent a note of congratulations but stayed away, still grappling with her prejudices. It didn't matter to Simone and Theo. Everyone who truly loved them was present, and love filled the air. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife again, Theo swept Simone into a passionate kiss as the boys ewed and giggled and the guests clapped. Theo then bent down, and each of the triplets got their own special hug and kiss from their parents, reaffirming that this celebration was as much about uniting the family as it was about the couple. The moral wasn't lost on anyone there. Love had conquered pride and prejudice, and family had proven far more valuable than all of Theo's millions. As dusk fell that day, Theo found a quiet moment to reflect, watching Simone laugh with their children as they chased fireflies. He felt an overwhelming gratitude. Life had given him a second chance. Not everyone gets that. He almost lost his family due to his foolish pride, but the truth had come out in time, and he seized the opportunity to make things right. He walked over to his wife and pulled her into his side, lifting Dahlia into his arms. The boys danced around them, fireflies blinking like tiny stars in the growing twilight. Simone looked up at Theo, her eyes full of love. "Happy?" she asked, already knowing the answer. Theo smiled, a tear of joy slipping down his cheek as he surveyed his beautiful family. "Beyond my wildest dreams," he whispered. He kissed her softly, then scooped up Micah, who was tugging at his pant leg, begging to be lifted high. Isaiah climbed onto Simone's back with a squeal, and Xavier took both their hands, swinging between them. They were a picture of contentment and wholeness, something hard-earned and deeply cherished. In that moment, Theo felt he finally understood the full weight of the lessons life had taught him. He met Simone's gaze and said, "Thank you for teaching me what truly matters." She reached up and caressed his cheek. "Sometimes we learn the hard way, but those lessons stick the best," she replied gently. Theo nodded, then addressed the boys with a grin. "All right, my little men, time to head home and get ready for bed. Who's going to beat Daddy in brushing teeth tonight?" And off they went amidst giggles and playful shouts, a happy, united family strolling toward the warm light of home. Theo and Simone nearly lost their happily ever after by valuing the wrong things: ego, approval of others, fear of differences. But through remorse, forgiveness, and unwavering effort, they found their way back. They proved that true love can weather even the worst storms when one humbles oneself and prioritizes what really counts: the people we love. In choosing love over pride and family over wealth and status, Theo not only reunited with his soulmate, but gained the immeasurable treasure of watching his children grow up in a loving home. Theo and Simone's journey reminds us all that, while mistakes can cost us dearly, redemption is possible if we face the truth, swallow our pride, and fight for the ones who truly matter. And so, the millionaire and his once-lost love got their second chance at happiness, a chance as bright as the smiles of their triplets and as enduring as the love they now cherish forever. Friends, thank you for walking with Theo and Simone from heartbreak to healing. Their journey is proof that it's never too late to right a wrong, and that family is worth more than any fortune. If this story touched you, tap that like button. It helps more people discover these tales. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next one. And in the comments, tell us, if you were Simone, could you have forgiven Theo? Or if you were Theo, how far would you have gone to earn back her trust? We read every response, and your thoughts inspire our next stories. Until next time, keep believing in love, even when it's hard.